Bob Dylan is celebrated as the quiet poet of American music, the man who turned folk into fire. But the truth is far darker. At 84, he finally exposed 6 bands he grew to despise after private insults, stolen ideas, and one vicious moment that turned admiration into fury. And the most shocking part? Some of these wars began with a single careless sentence. Bob Dylan and the Beatles were never supposed to be enemies. When they first met at the Delmonico Hotel in New York City on August 28, 1964, the world believed they had formed an artistic brotherhood. Dylan introduced them to marijuana, they introduced him to the scale of global fame. But beneath the public smiles, something darker was forming. By 1965, Dylan began noticing how quickly the Beatles were absorbing his lyrical style. Songs like You've Got to Hide Your Love Away sounded uncannily Dylan-esque. Then came the breaking point. When Paul McCartney's Yesterday became a global phenomenon in 1965, interviewers repeatedly asked Dylan for his thoughts. His response was a surgical strike: if you go into the Library of Congress, you'll find a lot better. There are millions of songs like Yesterday written in Tin Pan Alley. This wasn't just criticism, it was Dylan declaring the song structurally unoriginal, a polished imitation rather than real emotional sacrifice. John Lennon, already insecure about his place next to McCartney, saw Dylan's comment as an attack on the band's artistic legitimacy and retaliated by privately recording a cruel parody of Dylan's vocal style. When Dylan heard it, he was reportedly humiliated. The rivalry intensified during the 1966 tours as journalists pushed the narrative of Dylan versus Beatles, who is the real poet of a generation. Perhaps even more brutal was Joni Mitchell's attack. She didn't just criticize Bob Dylan, she humiliated him. Their clash exploded from a single 2010 interview when Mitchell looked straight into the camera and delivered the most brutal line ever aimed at Dylan by another artist: "Bob is a fake. Everything about Bob is deception." Dylan had endured critics and parodies, but never a peer accusing him of being a fraud at the core of his identity. Mitchell claimed his persona was invented, his voice was affected, and his myth was built on borrowed styles. She later mocked his singing voice on television, imitating him in a nasal caricature that had the audience laughing. Dylan reportedly told close friends he considered Mitchell's words a personal attack, not an opinion. To this day, they've never reconciled. With Neil Young, the tension first took shape in the mid-1970s when Young's politically charged songs thrust him into the spotlight as the new conscience of American music. Critics began comparing him directly to Dylan, sometimes even calling Young a sharper, more honest version. Dylan hated that label. He had earned his reputation through years of chaos and reinvention. In 1980, during a backstage conversation in Santa Monica, Neil Young reportedly said he never understood why people treated Dylan like an untouchable prophet. Dylan, hearing it secondhand, fired back in an interview: "People today mistake volume for truth." Everyone knew he meant Young's aggressive political style. The feud with Eric Clapton was perhaps the most personal. The clash began in the early 1970s when Clapton, newly crowned god by British rock fans, hinted in an interview that Dylan didn't truly understand the roots of the music he borrowed. The first sparks flew at a 1975 recording session in Los Angeles when Clapton abruptly cut off a guitar solo Dylan had requested, telling the producer, "This is my territory." Dylan froze. No one had ever spoken to him like that in a studio. He walked out moments later. By 1985, when a journalist asked Dylan about white musicians popularizing blues, his answer was a razor blade: "Some people play the blues, others steal it." Everyone understood who others referred to. And then there were the Byrds, the cover band that crossed the line. The moment Dylan heard their 1965 version of Mr. Tambourine Man, he reportedly stared at the radio and muttered, "What is this?" The band had cut his sprawling poetic composition down to a 2-minute pop single. Roger McGuinn defended the arrangement proudly, claiming the Byrds had made it listenable. That comment struck Dylan like a slap. Their first face-to-face clash happened in New York late 1965 after the Byrds version topped the charts. McGuinn approached Dylan backstage, expecting praise. Instead, Dylan looked him in the eye and said quietly, "You ruined my song." The words were simple but devastating. Ironically, the Byrds helped introduce Dylan's songwriting to millions, but that only made the betrayal feel deeper. Dylan didn't want fame through distortion, he wanted the truth of his music intact. If these shocking music feuds surprised you, hit that like button and subscribe to Hollywood Unseen. Ring the notification bell because we're revealing the untold rivalries, betrayals, and battles that shaped music's greatest legends.